for joining us today. My name is Heather Rissler, and I'm Program Manager for Faculty Development at KUMC.
And I'm Victoria Rosales. I'm the Administrative Assistant for our Office of Faculty Development. Thank you for having us. And as we said, please feel free to eat your lunch. Chips are not an issue.
So as we learned this morning, a good mentor is key to growth and development. So this is a critically important relationship. We learn that in the keynote. It is worth learning how to do well. Today, we're going to walk you through 3 parts of our session. The first part, we will discuss the story of KUMC's mentoring program and how it has changed over time. We will then highlight data and the key insights and takeaways and lessons learned from our own faculty mentoring program. And then we're going to give you the opportunity to work with one of 2 handouts, or possibly both, to build and strengthen your own mentorship journey, or to think about a program that you might want to develop, or if you have one that already exists, to think about how you might want to strengthen that.
So let's dive into an overview of our program story.
I'm going to pause you for one moment.
Yes.
I don't see you on my chat, so I'm going to share you again.
Okay. Well, for those who just entered, I will get you to do that. Sure. Good go? Okay. So let's dive into an overview of our program story. Imagine you're in a serene tropical paradise near the ocean. Perhaps Hawaii, maybe even Fiji. And while you're there, you're on a journey to mastering surfing. To conquer the art of riding the waves, you have to think about the why, the what, and the how. When creating a mentorship program, you need the same thoughtful approach. So for our why, our program was created because our faculty desired more mentoring opportunities. And that was very relevant for our women and our underrepresented medicine faculty. And this was evident in our data, which we collected from our annual review assessments, our departure interviews, and our faculty needs assessment. The what we used a personality assessment tool called the Big 5 Inventory, or BFI, or OCEAN. And that's why our presentation is themed Surfing the Ocean of Success. Through the business literature, we discovered that pairing matches using similar personality traits made the matches more successful. And finally, the how. How are we going to get our faculty to join our program? We decided initially on an annual enrollment process. Now let's look at some of our phases. Phase 1 was created to spark interest. And the way that we did that was by gathering a panel of expert mentors and mentees to share their best practices and experiences. In phase 2, that was our first pilot group, and it consisted of 30 faculty from our emergency department. And they were given a survey which included the BFI, demographics, experiences, and interests. So from the BFI, we use the categories openness, consciousness, and emotional reactivity. And that was because of the literature that we researched. When they took the BFI assessment, it was voluntary, and only the results were shown to them. So they wouldn't be judged whichever category they fell into, which none of them are bad. Then we moved to pilot 2. We took what we learned from pilot 1, we updated the survey, and then we gave it to a select cohort of our School of Medicine faculty who took the annual faculty assessment and showed interest in being mentored or being a mentee. And that was within a 2-year time frame. Comparing the past to now, we've removed the panel portion. Our journey went from annual to open, where now faculty can opt in or out whenever they would like. Our match process is still the same, and our algorithm is the BFI, areas of interest, and underrepresented faculty in medicine groups, if applicable. Once the pairs are matched, they are notified via email. And for our meeting portion, the expectation is for the one-to-one meetings to happen at least twice a year, minimum. It spans the relationship of 2 years, but if either party wants to change during the first year, that's perfectly acceptable. In addition to their one-to-one meetings, they have an optional quarterly meeting, which is now structured with our mentorship themes and activities and is open to any faculty that is interested in the program. Now I will turn it back over to Dr. Rissler, who will give us some valuable insights on our data analysis.
Thank you, Victoria. As you can see from our chart here of number of participants by year, we had initially an increase in participants in 2022, followed by a decline in 2023. Part of this decline, though, is because people were still in those relationships that they established in 2021 and 2022. 2024 is our first year of open enrollment, and we anticipate these numbers will grow throughout the year as more people sign up for the program. When we matched people, we asked the mentees to reach out to the mentor. We put the onus on them to make that initial contact. When we asked mentees what kept you from contacting your mentor if they didn't do that, 60% of them said that I'm just too busy. 20% said I don't want to burden the mentor. 10% were nervous to contact them. And then 10% were actually not happy with the match that we made using our algorithm. We also measured satisfaction, and you can see that on the y-axis here. The higher the number, the greater the satisfaction. So we had a high satisfaction at 3 months, followed by a decline at 6 months, and then a plateau at 12 months. You can also see the different types of participants. We have people who signed up to be both a mentor and a mentee in yellow, and people who only wanted to be a mentee in red, and then people who only wanted to be a mentor in blue. What was really interesting about these data, though, is that when I disaggregated the data based on whether or not the participants actually attended any of our supports that we offered, including the quarterly meetings, and initially we had videos that they could watch and panels they could participate in, the people who attended one or more events actually reported higher satisfaction. The people who didn't attend any of the support events reported lower satisfaction. And so that suggests to us how important these support opportunities are for faculty. So the types of things that we talk about during these meetings, we've heard about many of these things already today in several of the sessions that I've been in, at least with the keynote this morning and with Dr. Smith earlier today. But you want to make sure that both the mentor and the mentee really clearly define what they think it means to be a mentor or a mentee so that everyone's on the same page. You want to discuss the types of mentoring or style of mentoring. I tend to like a more collegial, comforting, nurturing style. That may not work for everyone. Some people may need, somebody to almost be a little more strict with them. And so you have to have those conversations. You want to think about the frequency. How often are you going to meet? I personally meet with my mentor quarterly because that makes sense for me. You want to figure out what are your goals for these meetings or in between the meetings. And then people forget about this last one frequently, but how are you going to evaluate whether this relationship is working? And we've got tools in the references later that can help you with that. So we have actually shifted. We're still having quarterly meetings because it is great for people coming together and really discussing best practices. But we are also now developing a more formalized training curriculum that's based on SIMMER. And SIMMER is the Center for Improvement of Mentored Experiences in Research. And they have a number of modules. They're not all listed here, but some of them are. So how do you maintain effective communication? How do you align the expectations? How do you promote professional development in your mentee? Address issues related to equity and inclusion? And then they have a new module on culturally aware mentoring, which is a very important topic as well. So basically with all of our data, we had surveys that we collected, analyzed the data, we had anecdotal data, people just talking to us, and then we had our own observations about how the program was going. And we had several takeaways. One of them is it is very difficult for us to match people who are underrepresented in medicine if they want a mentor who is also underrepresented in medicine, because our pool of mentors who are URIM is very small. And I don't want to tax any of those individuals to say, I need you to have more mentors. We found that the one-to-one match, that having that dyad is an ideal type of mentoring, but it's hard for people to find the time. And again, these are people who opted in. They filled out the survey, they wanted to be a mentor or a mentee, and yet sometimes those pairs were not actually meeting. And so it just kind of fell through the cracks of people being busy, demands. A lot of our faculty are medical doctors and are in clinic and things like that. The quarterly meetings, we got much better feedback when we went to a more structured approach, and we now have a theme for each meeting. We have topics for discussion, and we have a purpose that we're trying to fulfill while still discussing best practices. And then finally, we genuinely believe that training, I think we heard that this morning in the keynote, there is no graduate class that people take when they're in school to learn how to become a good mentor. People tend to mentor sometimes how they were mentored, and that may not have been the best way. And so we want to really help formalize that training. We're also realizing we need to support people and give them a tool to help them establish and align their expectations, and then actually assist them with scheduling. It's still going to be on them because our office can't do that. We don't have the capacity, but we can certainly help. So in our third portion, we like to be really interactive in our sessions. And so we have something that we're going to ask you to work on. And I believe everyone got 2 handouts, and I will discuss the first one, and Victoria will discuss the second one. This first one, we're calling it a mentor program planning tool. And you could use this, and imagine you're here for different reasons, but let's say you work at an institution that does have a formal mentoring program already. You could actually use this to think about how to strengthen it. If you work at an institution that does not have a formal mentoring program, and maybe you want to develop a mentoring program for faculty, you could use this handout to develop that program. It's going to allow you to map out your stakeholders, to complete a NEBR plan, how you might complete a needs assessment. It will allow you to think about the logistics, because those honestly are oftentimes the most challenging part. And then it's going to allow you to evaluate the efficacy of your program.
And the second worksheet is the mentor map, shared from the National Center of Faculty Development and Diversity. And it is an opportunity for you to fill in your current network and see where there are some gaps. If you're not planning to, or if you want to do in addition to the program planning. And Heather's going to explain a little bit more on these worksheets.
Yes, very briefly, because we did try to type information into the handouts to make them pretty self-explanatory. But the stakeholder mapping, I assume most people know what a stakeholder is, but I honestly didn't know what one was until about 5 years ago when I started doing some work more in that world. But the stakeholders are the people for whom your program matters, the people who are using the program, or the people who are involved. And they can have various levels of influence, and they can have various levels of support that they offer. And so just as an example, Victoria, our admin assistant, she has the highest level of support. The program would not run without her, but she's not making the executive decisions about how we run the program. And so I would put her over here in this bottom right corner. There's nothing wrong with that. She's obviously, again, critically important, but that's just where she would lie. When I think of some of our leaders, they have a really great power to influence the outcome, but they're not going to be in the trenches providing support because they're busy. And so they might go up here in the top left. And so you can think about who your stakeholders are. And then in the needs assessment, there are many different ways you can do this. They're not even all listed here, but you might use a design thinking approach, where you try to empathize with your user, your mentors and your mentees, define what problems they may have, ideate potential solutions to those problems, prototype, try them out, like our colleague Dr. Bart did in our program, and then run tests to see what's working most effectively. Also, surveying people, great way to do a needs assessment, focus groups, and then if you have any other ideas, there's a space to write that. The logistics, we made it more like a checklist. So thinking about what type of mentoring you want to set up, you can think about the joining, the matching, and the meeting, and you can just check off the things that might be what you want to do. And again, there's space to write other. And then finally, on the back, it's very important. People often forget this step to evaluate what is working, what needs to be improved. This will give you some questions to kind of consider so you can do that evaluation on your own. And if you don't mind, Victoria, are we good on time?
Yes, we are.
I just wanted to explain one thing on this because I found it confusing when I first came across this. Again, we did not make this. This is from the lovely NCFPD, but I took a short workshop with them on mentoring, and this is one of the tools they provide. If you work at KUMC or KU Lawrence, you actually have a subscription to this organization. But this, and I heard some different things today, to be honest with you. I heard this morning from the keynote, 4 to 5 mentors is ideal. And then I heard Dr. Smith earlier today talking about having something that looks more like this, which is a mentoring map or a constellation of networks. These don't have to all be formal people that you meet with quarterly, because that would be a lot of people to meet with. But it's basically thinking about who's going to be the person who's going to keep it real with you. Who's going to be your safe space that you can go to when things are rough? Who will help you with professional development, et cetera? The one that threw me off was in the bottom right, the intellectual community. When you're thinking about people reading your work, you might have various stages of completion. Like if you're working on a manuscript and maybe you're just getting started, you might have somebody that reads that work for you versus you're about ready to submit to a journal. That might be a different person, you know, and so that can look different. And so if you have any questions about this, we will be available, but we are going to give you time to like actually do some brainstorming amongst yourselves and kind of map out what your mentorship journey will look like.
And we're going to give you 15 minutes. Feel free to work individually or collaborative. And again, we're here.
You'll still have time. And we'll still have time. I'm just curious, is there your work at an institution already has a mentoring program in place? I know KU Lawrence. Okay.
It depends on the department.
Okay, and sometimes there can be definite inconsistencies across fields. And again, if that doesn't resonate with you, if you're like, I'm not involved, or I'm just not the person who's making a program, we all need these people in our lives. Like no matter where you are in your life, it's good to have these people. So it might just be 15 minutes that you spend kind of mapping out what does this look like for me personally.
So please, names here or what?
I'm sorry.
So there's
People write their names. Yeah, it's just for you. We're not going to take it. I mean, it's just for your own personal
Okay.
benefit. Yeah, you can just write their first name or, yeah. Sure. Into this 15 minutes here. Okay, you can chat. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
We've got a couple of workshops. We're just getting everybody back.
I'm curious, I do this to my students all the time. I'm a teacher in addition to working in faculty development. And so I am notorious for giving my students something and asking them to do it. And then I start talking to them and it drives my students crazy. But I'm curious about that map one that we gave you. Does anybody know one single person in their life who can meet all of those roles? Because I have one person who comes close, but she's not all. And I'm just curious if anybody else like knows anybody who's like, yes, that's my safe person and my keep it real person and my everything. Yeah, I don't need her. Like I said, I can only think of one that comes to of course. And she's a pretty amazing woman, but she still doesn't meet all of this for me, so. Okay, awesome. Okay, but. Sorry. So how we so we're just asking people to do one of your reviews or you could do both. We're asking you to think about your work, but like, do you have a mentoring program starting staff? And if you really don't, you use that role to help them imagine the one that might be established because it can be very helpful for the program to help manage people. And then we all need mentors in our life. And so we love this NCFPP that allows you to think about, okay, who's the person who will keep it together? But who's your safe person? Who's going to support you? So you can use either one. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome. No need to fear about interrupting anything. We have these worksheets, just some thoughts if you want to put them down on the mentorship program. If you're not planning a program, little design.
We're going to go ahead and give you a 3-minute warning, just so we can have a group conversation together about some best practices for mentoring, some best practices for developing a program, or what kinds of experiences that you might be having at your institutions around finding a good mentor. Yeah. I think we go ahead and facilitate a conversation, because I have some questions for you too, because I'm really curious about what others are experiencing as they grapple with good mentorship programs and how to develop those or how to strengthen them. So I'm just curious, I know we heard that KU, you do have mentoring, but it might be inconsistent or different in different departments. And so is that something that there's a desire at the institutional level to formalize that process so there's more consistency for people?
So they have, under the vice provost for faculty development and mentorship, they, as you come in as tenure track, and I think it was only for tenure track, they would pair you in groups with a senior mentor and then probably 4 or 5 mentees. And we would try to meet, for our group, we met probably once a month, but that only lasted the first year. And now we see them every once in a while on campus, or we're at different campuses. So it's a little less prominent now, but I think if we ever needed to, we could reach back out to our mentor, because I know they're still at the institution. And then within our department, we get paired, but it was initially voluntary of who do you want to be your mentor and how can they help you whether or not they're in your program or not. And so that's now being reinstituted of like, here's your mentor. You guys work together when you're working on your dossier or whatever problems we might have arise. So it depends on the level.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And ours is completely voluntary. We do pair all new faculty with an advisor automatically, because we want them to have a point person on campus that they can talk to about any questions that they may have. But this program, to actually have a formal mentor or to be a mentee, it is completely voluntary. One of the things that I found really interesting is that I get a chance to do many of our departure interviews. So I'm one of the people that interviews faculty when they leave KUMC. I have yet to interview someone who actually used our mentoring program. So everyone that I interview, when I ask, did you have a mentor at KU, they say no. And so we really do think that and they'll say it's very important. But then when I ask them, did you know about our program? They'll say no. And we send so many emails out. So it is out there. It's on our website. Like it is well, advertised. So I think that lack of mentoring, I guess that's why I'm asking you, is because that lack of mentoring can lead to people leaving. And I think that's hard for an institution. And so I was just curious about what other kind of work context you might work in, what kinds of mentoring is available to you, or do you wish there was a formal mentoring program, or is there one and maybe it's just not working the way you all? Anybody else have anything else they would like to share about that?
Or do you have a stellar program?
Yeah.
We need to take tips and tricks from you.
Like if you have advice, we will take it. Yes.
I didn't know about it. I'm at the med, we're both at the med center.
Oh.
Neither of us-
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, it's there.
No.
People at KU Med are paying attention. Sorry about that.
And we hired Maui and a few others, and I've been there 12 years. I don't know if it was ongoing at that time, but I didn't know to tell her about it,
Okay.
and or anyone else we've hired.
Relatively new-ish, 2021. So I mean, this has
Yeah.
not honestly been that long.
Okay,
Yes. Okay.
but
Have you received an invite to our new faculty onboarding?
I'm not sure actually.
That's okay. No problem. I get a lot of emails. You probably get a lot of emails. So we do, when new faculty come in, we have 3 new faculty orientations onboarding throughout the year. And so we invite faculty to attend one of those where they will learn about all of these things that we offer. And we have people come from like the research office, like I can't remember everybody's names, but like Dr.
We have the KU leadership for School of Medicine, so our dean, we have the DEI office president.
Johnson's who I'm thinking of, that does overseas research. So we have all these people that we introduce new faculty to, and then we pair them up. Even if they don't come to one of our sessions because it's voluntary, we will still pair you with an advisor from the Academy of Medical Educators because we want you to have some kind of contact with someone.
And that is also recent and new.
Recent and new, yes. So maybe we're not getting the word out.
For anybody hired on the university side?
Yes, but it will take time.
School,
On the,
it's specific to School of Medicine.
sorry, School of Medicine, yes. But it takes time to get, like, we look at the list 3 times a year. So if you were hired like 2 months ago, for example, we may not have gotten you into our invite yet.
She's been around for a year.
Okay, she would have, at some point, I can double check, but
Maybe I missed it.
it's okay. It's okay because you get so many emails. And I think that's part of what's hard is that there's even the people who voluntarily signed up to be a mentor or a mentee still struggle to actually meet with their person. So they willingly filled out the survey to do this program and still had a hard time meeting because you all are very busy. And so my apologies if I implied anything rude there. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You have so many things that you can do and it's hard to figure out what would work. But I will say though, because you are new, this enrollment for our program is open throughout the year. So it's not like in the past where we would ask people to sign up in like February and then we were done for the year. So if you are looking for a mentor and you fill out the survey, we will find you somebody. We will match you. Maybe we help somebody today.
And I'm gonna give you my card. And so
Oh, thank you, Vicki.
please email me and I will send all the information. Thank you.
Yes,
I have a question, or with KU as well. Is it only open for faculty or?
this particular one that we run is only open for faculty. Are you a student or?
No, just employee, staff member.
Oh,
Yeah,
that-
research.
That's a great question though, because,
That's us too.
oh,
That's what we-
okay. Faculty. Oh, that's right. Again,
I thought
that's
you
totally cool. But that makes me question, it makes me wonder, why don't we have a parallel program for just humans? Because everybody needs a mentor. So we were looking at this specifically from the faculty angle because we're in the Office of Faculty Affairs and Development. And because we noticed that many of our faculty who left us were saying, I didn't have a mentor, or I didn't get, I don't know what I'm doing, or I just couldn't use that help. But that's a very valid point that you're making, is that all humans, I mean, that's what we gave you that sheet, is everybody can benefit. And it's a lot of work to try to find all of those people on your own to fill out that map. And so if I, like, for example, I'm staff technically, and you are staff as well, that would be something that we could bring up, at the institution and say, could we develop a corollary program for staff to help facilitate people getting together and establishing these relationships? So I was misunderstanding. That's a great point. That's valid. Yeah, that's very valid though. Yes, why don't we? Yep.
I think it's because our office is so tiny.
We are very tiny. Yeah.
So our main focus is on the School of Medicine faculty, but that is a great point. I think it's a great opportunity to contact our stakeholders that are above us and say, why don't we open this up to the university?
Yes.
Same thing with wellness, right?
Yes,
Let's grow that. Let's incorporate everybody.
absolutely. That makes sense. That makes sense. I definitely hear what you're saying on that. Any other questions? Like, is anybody here in a position where you are actually going to be developing a mentoring program? Anybody interested in doing that? Yes. How's that going?
Clinical oncologist here and one of our associate program directors for our fellowship. So my struggle is always trying to find mentors for our fellows as they're trying to do their fellowship research project, which they only have a year and a half to do. And some of them want to do clinical, some of them want to do labs, some want to do QI. And so finding those mentors here or at KU or Stowers or wherever and matching them well in such a short time period, and they don't often know what they want to do. It's really hard. So just thinking about how to help them help each other and having that list of potential mentors.
Yes. And I think that like Victoria has done a really great job of highlighting, like she'll put together a spreadsheet or a Word document that has the different mentors that we have available, and she'll list their interest. Like this person wants to mentor on academic promotion, or this person wants to mentor on clinical research. And so that helps us kind of make those matches. And then we also just, the survey really helps. So I don't know if you have access to RedCap, but if you just devise, it can be a pretty simple survey, but just what do you want mentoring on? And then ask the mentors, what are you comfortable mentoring someone on? And then you're just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So that could be one approach, possibly. But I hear what you're saying too, because they're there for a very short period of time.
Yeah, they're not faculty.
Yes. That makes sense. That makes sense.
And since our program is voluntary, it's like, we already have this pool of people we can pull from, whereas you're going out trying to find that matches. That would be.
So any other questions or insights that anyone wants to share about mentorship in general? Have you learned anything today in any of the other sessions that jumped out at you about best practices for mentoring? Okay.
I think
Yes.
Yeah.
just something I've learned or thought about more, just looking at the division of like how some are good at connecting you to things, but some are good at helping you with like process your sort of psychosocial stuff that's going on. And I'm like, oh, I do that. I'm like not good at actually connecting people, but help them like.
Did you go to Dr. Smith's talk by chance, where she talked about connectors, or did you go to a different talk?
I think so. Was that the
connectors and sponsors, all the different things?
Yeah.
Yes, until today, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't know what the connector was. And so when she said connectors, I thought, I'm not sure what she means, but then she explained it and I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. You need the person that's gonna help actually say, hey, have you met this so-and-so yet? And no, I thought that was really great too. So I'm definitely learning a lot from today's sessions. Okay, so we will go ahead and move forward then with our summary, and then I will spend a little time, Vicki, just kind of going through some of the references because there's some great tools in there after we wrap this part up. So in summary, what we have learned, and I think we also learned this today because you all are KUMC stakeholders as well, is that we need to listen to stakeholders. We need to understand what are the needs that our stakeholders have. And we want to also consider what promotes effective mentoring and what hinders effective mentoring. And we have found that the things that we can do to promote effective mentoring are really to have conversations about what good mentorship looks like and to have those quarterly meetings where people can discuss best practices with one another. We have found the things that hinder are things like time, not knowing that the program exists, or maybe the program doesn't exist for a category of individuals at the institution. And so that's something to consider for the future for sure. We've also learned that structure is important. So providing some structure to help build those relationships. So telling people you've been matched, please reach out to your mentor. We hope that goes well. It just isn't working for everyone, right? And so we can provide some more structure to help support that process. And then ultimately, we want to continually improve. Like if we're learning that what we're doing isn't working or we're missing a category of people, then we can kind of think about, well, how can we work on making this better for the future for everyone to get good mentoring at KUMC? Go ahead, Vicki. Did you want to ask any questions?
No, just to say that this is our resource list and you will be provided a PowerPoint that you click on the links. Heather's going to go ahead and review some of those.
I just wanted to point out a couple of things. And again, I realize that you all are very different places. Like we've got some people that the clinical family medicine article might be relevant for you, but there are some really great review articles that already exist out there about mentorship programs at medical institutions or mentorship programs at places like KU, like an undergrad institution and graduate school. And so there are already articles that exist, and so we've highlighted several of those for you. Also, if you're looking at doing needs assessments and you want to survey people or you want to build a mentoring survey, you can do a literature search. Many people have already done this work. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just go to the literature and say, what have people already done? What kinds of questions are they asking people? And then we can build our survey off of that. And then, the Nature Guide to Effective Mentors is also a really great guide. And then there's several more articles that we provided. Again, most of ours tend to be in academic medical settings because that's where we work. And so that's where most of my research comes from that I'm looking at reading. And then there's a great book about mentoring in health professions education. There are several great websites, including the NCFDD, that again, you have access to at KU as well as KUMC. And then the Center for Improvement of Mentored Experiences and Research, I was able to participate in their facilitator training recently. It was really good. They've got great resources because the part of the reason why I'm honestly so passionate about this, I actually had some really bad experiences with mentors when I was in graduate school. I had some great mentors. I mean, I'm thankful for them, but I had two in particular that were really not good. And it literally changed my career trajectory. Like, I always thought I'm going to be a scientist. And then after I worked in a research lab, I thought, this is an unhealthy place. I don't know if I'm going to make it here. And so I thought teaching is really better for me. And so I literally changed the ultimate path of my career based on some poor mentoring. And so I'm super passionate about this topic. And to say that people just know how to mentor, they don't. Just like people don't know how to teach. We didn't get trained in how to do that, right? Or most of us didn't. And so I think that really providing people with the tools to do this well so that they don't have those negative experiences or have what the keynote speaker used the term this morning, tour mentor. I had never heard that before. And I thought, is that what I had? I had two tour mentors because I didn't realize that's what they were called. So anyway, very, very interesting.
And I would just like to add, it's not just on the mentor as well. Sometimes as the mentee, we often don't know what our clear, specific, measurable goals are that we want to take to our mentee or to mentor. So and you can learn from both sides. And hopefully that is the goal, that you're both teaching each other and learning together.
I will say I'm really lucky. My mentor is in that category. She doesn't have any formal training, and she's really interested to learn more from me about what I learned. And so she sees the relationship as being mutually beneficial. And so I think when you can find somebody like that, that's a great point, because I have to have a responsibility on myself as well to do my part, to come to the meetings prepared, to have goals mapped out, and to try to work on actually achieving those. Any questions for us? I think we questioned you.
Yeah, we questioned you.
Any questions? Just let us know.
Is your match service available for non-KUMC affiliates?
No, that's a great question, because we again are just school of medicine, so we're not even doing like school of nursing or health professions. And so it's very specific to the school of medicine just because of that retention issue of, people leaving and then saying that they lacked mentorship. And so it was a response to a problem, I suppose. And so maybe, yes. And so I do think that that's something I would ask your institution about, like what might be a more global kind of process, because I've worked at undergrad before I came to KUMC at colleges and universities, and it's very varied. Like some schools you get assigned a mentor when you start, and then others you don't, or some departments you do and others you don't. And that makes me worry about faculty, or makes me worry about people who aren't faculty who don't have access.
And it does hurt our hearts, because we do really strive to open up all of our activities and events to everybody on campus, regardless of what school you're in, regardless what staff or faculty are. So if you see our calendar invites and it says the focus is School of Medicine, we do welcome you, because all of our stuff can be for a general audience.
Yes.
Unless otherwise specified, like the mentorship program.
True. That is one rare exception.
Yes.
Yes, that is one rare exception. Well, we greatly appreciate your time and your attention, and we hope that you have a lovely rest of your conference experience.
Yes,
And maybe we'll see you around at KU.
Thank you. Our cards over here, if you want to